Hello everyone and welcome to another video and the first episode of Rate Your Gaming Rigs in 2020. Now, I plan to do one of these every month without fail. I apologise if I've missed your rig, if I've missed your DM on Instagram or Twitter. I plan to be a lot more better at social media outside of YouTube this year, just so I can interact with more of you guys on a regular basis. So if I have missed your rig out of today's video, maybe you sent it a few months ago and I didn't see it, be sure to resend it on your chosen platform at RGNHD on both Twitter and Instagram. You should find me over there. I'm pretty active on Instagram at least, and I'm going to try and be better at Twitter. So reach out to me with your rigs as well as the specs, and maybe you'll make it into the February edition of RYRG. RYGR. Yeah, that's better. Now I'm going to keep my voice down because it is New Year's Day, and I bet I can guess what a lot of you were up to last night. To my fellow Britons, I guarantee I know what you were up to last night. How do I know? You probably had too much to drink. Well, you're British. It's what we do. It's a national problem. So let's get into it and start with the first rig here from Lennys Browser. I apologise, Lennys_Browser. I apologise for the whole username thing. I will always misread your names. I am terrible with pronunciation of anything, as you can probably hear by my voice. But here we have a Ryzen 5 2600 build featuring an RX 580, 16 gigs of DDR4, and a 120 gig SSD, as well as a Seagate 500 gig M2 SSD. Please roast my second monitor. Well, I don't think that's necessary because it's done a pretty good job of roasting itself. Although I do like the way you have the clock separately displayed on that monitor. Or maybe it's a countdown until you get a new monitor. Moving on, and we have Spice Dogger. Congratulations, your username has single-handedly probably demonetized this entire video, but never mind. Anyway, the specs: a cheap 1080p 75Hz monitor, an R5 2600, another Ryzen 5 2600, excellent value at the moment if you ask me, especially in the UK and the US, 8 gigs of 2400 MHz RAM as well, and a GTX 1050, soon to be a 1660 Ti. In terms of upgrades here, I would say that when you upgrade the graphics card, upgrading the RAM would also be a good choice. Not necessarily just the amount, but the speed as well. 16 gigs of 3000 MHz RAM would probably go better with a Ryzen. Jacked E. Byrne has sent over his i7-3770 rig with a 1070 Founders Edition. Love those Founders Edition cards, as well as 16 gigs of RAM at 1600 MHz. Thinking about switching to Ryzen, but might just hold out on Z77 for a little longer. Absolutely. Intel probably regret their socket 1155 chips, because I know so many people that are holding on to them. They just still do so well in games. Even the i7-3770, which can be easily picked up for less than £100, dollars or euros these days. It really is a great chip for the money. Next up we have a rig from Wanto91, an Intel Pentium G5400, one 8 gig stick of 2400 MHz memory, a Seagate Barracuda 1TB HDD, and a 256 SSD with a 500 watt NMAX PSU and a GTX 1050. Do you know what? I actually quite like the look of that. He's also put here that he's using several cheap RGB no-name fans, which is absolutely despicable. No-name fans. How could you? How could you? Who would use no-name red RGB fans in their system? I think those ones are actually exactly the same as the ones you're using here, and they are silent. They are completely silent, so I know exactly where you're coming from with them. I paid about £3 for one of those no-name RGB fans. Now, Inaba.99 has sent over what looks like an HP Thin Client PC. The way everything's just crammed in there so tightly reminds me of my HP Thin Client as well, so I presume it's got to be. An AMD GX 420CA with a Radeon R5 430, a 120 gig M.2 SSD, and 8 gigs of DDR3. I do love the HP Thin clients. I think they're perfect for emulation, things like that, if you want to fire up a few PS1 games. And, you know, for some Windows-based games, they can actually do okay. Older titles like GTA San Andreas, one of the best games of all time, for example, will probably run fine on a rig like that. Now, Machine Gun 888 has sent over some lovely pictures of his multicoloured setup here. As you can see, we've got a Ryzen 5 3600 with an RX 580 Special Edition, a 120GB SSD, a 1TB Seagate Barracuda, a Cooler Master Hyper 410R, and a MB511 case. He doesn't have a desk, it's just sitting on a wooden stool, according to the description here, and he's using a 50-inch smart TV as a monitor. I'm using a 40-inch smart TV as a monitor as well. It's just easier than having a monitor and a TV, isn't it? You get it all in one. Seriously, I'm moving soon. I've probably told you 100 times, but yeah, the TV makes a lot of sense for me at the moment, and it's obviously working for you here as well. Don't sit too close to it though, because my eyesight over the last year has probably deteriorated so badly through sitting this close to a 40-inch panel. In fact, where have you gone? Sorry to any of my blind subscribers out there for that. Now, Ethan Cross 9 has submitted a sort of multicolour rig, but in a different way here. Blue on the outside, red on the inside. He says he got it at an absolute steal. Love the old Xeons. Paired with an RX 570, which is probably one of the best value cards out there at the moment, especially the 4GB version. 14 gigs of DDR3 and a VS450 power supply. Now, you've got to be careful with the Corsair VS range. If it's working for you, then that's fine, but I have heard a few horror stories of them going pop, you know. So if you upgrade that card to anything more powerful in the future, you may want to consider a new power supply too. Now, we have Mick Beto, M-I-C-K-E-B-E-T-O, an MS Winston case. Just a random fact here, the dog next door is called Winston. That's all I have to say. I just thought that might be an interesting piece of information. For the motherboard, we've got a B65M with an i3-9100F, a GTX 1660, 2 sticks of 8GB 2400MHz RAM, a Falcon 750 or 80 plus PSU, and a 1TB HDD with a 120GB SSD. A very common combination these days, but, you know, it's the ideal setup really. You install the operating system on an SSD, maybe store your games on an HDD. I do like that red theme you've got going on with the white cabling there. I don't think I've ever put together a PC with quite so neat cable management. I get halfway through and think I can't be bothered. The i3, still a solid gamer, may struggle a bit in Premiere Pro, editing, things like that, but for gaming, well, it can certainly still hold its own, and I'd recommend it to anyone looking for an Intel chip at under £100 or dollars. Sorry, my camera ran out there. It's got about a 6-second battery life, so... Next up we have a little rig from Philip Dragutin. It's a Optiplex 320 SFF with an i3-4150, two 4GB sticks of DDR3, a GTX 1050 Ti and a 500GB Seagate Barracuda. The GPU couldn't fit, so I had to take out the PSU and remove the DVD-ROM completely. So you did. Well, it works, and that's all I can say. With those Optiplexes, if you ever wanted to upgrade, then you could probably slap an i5 in there for a little performance bump too, possibly an i7, but be sure to check what models of processors that specific Optiplex takes if you do plan on upgrading it, of course. Next up we have a system from Luke.R.C. He has an i7-2600 along with a GTX 970, 12 gigs of DDR3 memory, 120GB SSD once again, and a 1TB hard drive, as well as a 600W EVGA PSU. Please roast my cable management. Can't even fit my side panel on due to the GPU power cables. I know that problem. I just push it until it goes, you know. Don't once the side's on, you haven't got to worry. You just slam it shut, just push it right on there and forget about it, you know. It's not the worst thing in the world, not being able to fit the side panel on. It looks like you probably could with a bit of force, you know. Give it a good kick. So LiveStopEl_ here has sent me his i5 6500 gaming rig with a 1063 gig and 2133 MHz DDR4 RAM, 8 gigs of the stuff, along with that combination once again of a 120 gig SSD and 1TB hard drive. That is looking pretty dusty, but it does say he's cleaned it here, cleaned it yesterday. This was taken in the summer. Oh, okay. I was going to say that that could do with a pretty good clean, but as long as it's all cleaned up, well, you should be good to go. Just make sure you do keep your PCs clean on a regular basis. Dust is the worst thing for any PC to deal with. The 3 gig 1060 as we move into the new year may start to struggle, but it's still okay with medium high settings in most games from what I found, and the i5 6500 as well may start to show its age. But it still seems like a fairly solid chip, though buying them new isn't going to be worth your while, as they can be pretty overpriced. Now Thierry St. Pierre has sent me a wonderful looking Alienware rig here. Absolutely fantastic looking. What an old beast that is. An i7 930, an Asus Rampage 3 X58 board with 12 gigs of RAM and a GTX 770. I absolutely love the old Alienwares. Is that an Alienware case? Yeah, it certainly is. I think they look absolutely fantastic. A lot of people don't like them, but personally, I think they look really, really clean. That's a nice looking setup inside and out. Got everything without a GPU for 200 Canadian dollars. Was that a sweet deal? I think so. I mean, the resale value on those Alienwares is ridiculous. I mean, I've seen Core 2 Duo-based Alienwares sell for ridiculous money simply because they carry that Alienware name. You know, even if it's not an Alienware from factory, the fact that you've got it inside an Alienware case as well will guarantee you a high price if you ever come to sell it. People go mad for Alienware stuff, including myself. Dank Dorito sent me a message that said, I watch your videos in 480p, so it's not HD. How does that make you feel? Upset. Yoshinyon sent me this picture. I don't even know where to start. Surprisingly, that's not the worst thing I've seen. Honestly. Oh, now Will the Plank. Now we're talking. Look at this old school setup right here. A few interesting systems here, they certainly are. Look at those beasts. Here for review is my old AST Bravo 486 from 1994. Big up 1994, best year ever. It's the year I was born. We have 32 megs of RAM, a 1.44 floppy, 2 gig CF card, original 2 gig drive, a 12x optical drive, a Sound Blaster 16, an Ethernet card, DOS 6.22 and Windows 3.1. I absolutely love those old school computers there. Now what struck me about Kieran Lee 2005's build here wasn't the specs, a Ryzen 3 2200G, GTX 950 and 8 gigs of RAM with a 1TB HDD and a 120 gig SSD. It was actually the desk, which is currently an ironing board. Say hello to my desk. Oh dear. Oh, did I put that there just for the joke? Maybe. For any upgrade advice you might want there, I would suggest the 950. Could be swapped out for a better card, and the Ryzen 3 could still certainly handle it. Something like a 1060 if you ever were thinking of upgrading. As for the desk, well, I'd keep that. It's unique in every way, and I've never seen anything quite like it. Now, lightweight Eggroll here is very similar to me in the fact that we chose the same case, the Masterbox Q300L. I've actually gone right off the case. I think it's so awkward to use. The way the PSU sits in there and everything, I really do not like it, and it's something I wouldn't recommend, but you've actually made it look good. Mine looks awful. We've got a Ryzen 3 1300X and a GTX 1660 along with 8 gigs of 2666 MHz RAM, a Corsair CX 750 and an up here wireless RGB case fan, or a few as I can see, as well as the classic combo, a 1TB HDD and a 120 gig SSD. It's a very clean build. I like the blue fans in there. Should you upgrade anything, I would suggest the RAM. 16 gigs of 3000 megahertz would be a good way to go. The Ryzen 3 1300X may be next. Maybe stick a Ryzen 5 in there. The 1660 is obviously still a fantastic card. It's pretty new. And all in all, yeah, that's a pretty good looking build. Alex B 2004 with the i5 4670K at 4 GHz, a GTX 774 gig, 8 gigs of DDR3 and a 650 watt PSU. The 770 is a good card, but reaching the end of its lifespan, upgrading to a 1650 Super in the next month. Good choice. The i5 4670K, by the way, is still pretty solid as well. I think we took a look at it not long ago, and despite having just 4 cores and 4 threads, it still holds up pretty well. So yeah, the 1650 Super will be a nice addition, though I'm sure the CPU would be the next thing to be upgraded, perhaps to an i7 if you ever get the chance to do so. But for now, you're going to have a pretty good time with that combo. I got a little worried when I first saw the picture. I thought that was like a 300 watt OEM PSU out of an old HP or something like that, but it's a 650 watt unit, so my mind was slightly more at ease, though with the 1650 Super you're not going to need that much power anyway. Now, Gregor.Bonsina, I hope that's correct again, has sent me his budget gaming Lenovo pre-built M91P. For now, it's rocking an i5 2500 non-K, 16 gigs of RAM, and he's going to add a GTX 1050 Ti. And hope I could play all the games I want. The 1050 Ti still good for low-medium settings across the board in most titles, as is the i5 2500. The amount of those Lenovo pre-builts I see on eBay, I'm always tempted to buy one, but I haven't done so yet. I also like the minimalist look of the desk there. Now, SiapTT, got to be careful with that pronunciation, has sent me his Asus FX504 laptop, an i5 8300H with 8 gigs of RAM, a GTX 1050 and a 1TB HDD. I also have a Logitech G102 mouse and a tempered glass desk with a garden chair for that FPS boost. Oh yeah, I didn't notice that when I first took a look at those pictures, but that garden chair is probably getting you an extra 5 to 10 frames per second, just like that other dude's ironing board was probably giving him a nice FPS boost as well. That's why I keep mine, you know. You've got to get as many frame rates as you can. Speaking of getting as many frames as you possibly can, Towsteeboy Toasty_boy 21 has sent me his i5... No, sorry, where on earth did I get that from? A Ryzen 7 1700 rig with an RX 550 and 2 8GB sticks of 2000 MHz Samsung RAM. It's a moulded HP Pavilion. Moulded? If it's mouldy, there's going to be an issue. Modded. I guess that means modded. Oh, my reading skills are so good. 1TB of storage. No fancy RGB lighting because I like the basic look. So do I. The G Fuel sticker there on the side, as I was saying before, you've got to get all the frames you can, and that's probably getting you at least another 15 to 20 FPS. If you want faster frames, stickers. Remember that tip. Call me Linus with all these tech tips. Finally, we have old.no.its.zac with a Phenom X6 1075T. Now, there is a chip I haven't seen in a while at 3.2 GHz with an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060, 16 gigs of RAM, and a Corsair TX 850. With plenty of power for more upgrades. You're right, I used to have a TX 650, and it was a fantastic, albeit older PSU. It was absolutely silent. They're brilliant used ones to look out for. I know this isn't a very good build, but surprisingly most games run at 60 FPS with my monitor. I have to keep VSync on or it tears horribly. Also, I'm selling this PC to build a new Ryzen 2700X build. Nice. You know, I'm sure the Phenom X6 has a few issues in some games. I think there are a couple of games that will refuse to start on such a chip. I've had bad experiences with Far Cry, I believe, but I could be wrong. That could just be the X4s. So yeah, in combination with a 1060, it's pretty decent overall. An upgrade to a Ryzen 7 2700X would give you a noticeable performance boost, but you may want to upgrade that graphics card as well in order to get the most out of your new rig. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. I have had so many submissions. I want to try and take better care of my inboxes, stop them getting flooded. I get behind things sometimes, so keep your submissions coming. As I said at the start, if you've already sent me one and I've missed it, please send it again. Spam my inbox on Twitter and Instagram, and hopefully I can feature you in the next video. But all that's left to say is Happy New Year. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't. Thank you for your submissions. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.